On this episode of IT Unplugged, we're looking at the specific IT needs of photo and video professionals.
At M2 Technology, we're on a mission to make IT accessible to everyone. Join us on our journey to demystify the ever-evolving world of business technology. Are you ready to get unplugged?
Welcome back to IT Unplugged. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Tony.
And today, Tony, we're going to talk a little bit about the creative process and how IT and technology kind of plays a role in that. So before we get into that, though, could you just, introduce yourself a little bit?
Absolutely.
What you do?
My name is Tony Reale, and I'm the founder of Creative Edge Productions. So if you guys have been enjoying a lot of the amazing M2 technology content, we're the guys behind the camera that have been putting it together. And we also have our own YouTube channel, NextWaveDV, where we do a lot of educational stuff, which is when we started working with you guys, kind of how we modeled some of that stuff is just we found a lot of success in podcasting and ads and all that type of stuff. So it's been really fun to get a chance to work with you guys and develop all the great resources that you have, because we know cameras, we know filming, we know marketing. I don't know IT as well. I know it a little bit. I mean, I'm an early adopter and I love technology, but still it's so much to learn. And when it's your business and when it's your livelihood, that's even more important. So, I'm a part of all these podcasts, and we've been having some guests on recently, and I was like, we should talk about the creative needs, because I think they're unique, and I'm betting people in the audience there might be creative professionals out there that are thinking like, what do I do? Because I know I look that up on Google all the time. What should I be doing? What could I be doing? And technology changes so rapidly that you could be left in the dust just not knowing that there's even a really good option out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll kind of echo back that, like, when we were looking for a provider for our marketing and our video production needs, your stuff just stood out. We saw other local businesses using you guys, and we're like, oh, this looks fun and engaging and education focused. And then we got behind the curtain, and so much of it was data driven too. Like, oh, this is the best of both worlds. So we've been working together now for a couple of months, I'd say.
It's been almost, better portion of a year at this point.
Oh yeah, it has. Holy cow, time's flying by, right? It's like, how many episodes we got in here? But it's been really awesome to learn. I think the conversation about creative needs has been great. Every once in a while when we're in here, I'm, peeking around. I'm like, hey, what do you guys do for this? What do you do for that? Because I found what I'm seeing from working with a couple different creatives too, is you said you don't know a lot about technology, or IT, excuse me, a lot about technology. Okay. Tony knows a lot about technology, but there's kind of this personality, I think, where you guys can figure out so many other things a lot of the times. Like, we can kind of figure out this IT and the cybersecurity stuff also as you're going through. So even when you maybe downplay it a little bit, you still have a lot of things set up correctly, which is really great.
And it's the thing for me is, like, there's a lot of stuff about technology that I'm super comfortable with, and I've built my own NASs, and we have our own network that we run in here and everything like that. But there's still things like when I'm listening to you guys talk, and I'm like, oh, we're still not doing that right. We should probably do that better. Today I just want to talk about some of the stuff that we've incorporated that have been absolutely necessary. Yeah. But then also go, hey, these are things that I think we still need to do. Sure. And, again, listening to the other podcast episodes, it's this blessing and the curse, because, like, I love hearing all this stuff and it's really important, but it's also like oh man, we're still not doing this right. It's like when the doctor's like, oh, great, I cut out the carbs, but, you need to be eating more of this mineral or this other stuff. And I'm just like, oh man, stop it. I at least did this right. Can that be the celebration?
Give me a medal for that one at least before we move on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. What was, so just curious about that, like, what is, you said you implemented some things, you're like, hey, this is an absolute necessity, and you guys are in a completely different field than some of the people we usually work with, so just curious, what are some of those things?
So we do video, some photo, and some of our team also, like my wife and some of our other team members, do photography as well. So I would say this stuff, it can be applicable, even if you're into graphic design or whatever, but a lot of times when you're doing acquisition of any form of footage, a video or photo. There's the first, like a lot of new cameras nowadays have the option to have 2 camera card slots and record simultaneously. Not everyone does, but I'm always happy when they do, because that way I have built-in redundancy in there. If I have a card that fails, which I have had happen, it's very rare, but I've had where I shot something, popped the card out, stuck it in the computer, and glitch.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
So having that built-in redundancy is really nice. But what I often tell my team is, like, if it's not in 2 places, it's in 0 places.
Yeah,
so
love that.
when we get back from a shoot, that card, I even have like a little mini Pelican case, and with like the little card, holders and stuff like that. So those cards are sacred. It's like they get back from the shoot, they go in
That's
there.
all the work you've done for like.
It's so depressing when like on a postage stamp could be tens of thousands of dollars worth of work.
Yeah, sure.
But then we get back and we'll put it onto it, like bare minimum of 2 sources. So you might have like the hard drive that they're working off of locally, whether that's a regular hard drive or an SSD or NVMe or whatever, and then some other source. So it could be an external hard drive, it could be a RAID drive or a NAS or something like that.
Yeah.
But at bare minimum, it's got to be on 2 before we wipe the card. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is incorporating some sort of a checking backup copying software. So we used a free piece of software called Fast Copy.
Sure.
And when you do fast copy, you can click to enable how fast you can buffer the speed. You can tell it to verify. So once it takes twice as long to do that. But once it writes everything, it goes back and compares that against the original folder structure and verifies that all the bytes and bits and everything like that of the original file are also on the copied file. So again, it's basically doing a 1-for-1 check. Twice as long to do it. Totally worth it though, because we had it one time where like we plugged in a USB to like a hub, and we found out like every time we were copying stuff over the hub, we were getting corruptions from it.
Oh wow!
And it was like a high-end USB hub, but it's just like little things like that can bring in.
I was gonna ask, like, is there a situation that happened in the past that makes you so particular about the backup and the recovery right now?
So there's been a few things, one of which happened, which was we had a new hire that we use Dropbox a lot for both for file distribution and stuff like that, but also the one function that it has where you can kind of be working out of the same folder. So you could be logged into your Dropbox, and we have a shared folder in that. So if I change something in there, it changes it in your folder on your computer. So great if you're doing edits or changing files that need to constantly be changed, so we're not just copying things back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
We had a new hire come in, and one of our team members shared that folder with them, and they didn't realize that it was shared across everyone. And they went through and they were like, I don't need this on my computer anymore. So they hit delete.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yes.
That just hurts my heart like a little bit, just like hearing that. So.
And I hadn't been working in that folder for a while, and Dropbox like retained stuff for a month. And it was about 2 months later that I found out like, where is all the stuff that was supposed to be in this folder?
Yeah.
So
old projects, current projects.
They were assets that we were needing to update anyway, so it wasn't end of the world type stuff. But it was still not my favorite day.
No,
by any means.
That doesn't sound like the best day in the world. I'd like just want to. I'm just thinking in my head. I'm like, who is this person? So they're probably still here or something. No, I'm just. Kidding.
They didn't lose their job from that by any means. But it was a good lesson learned for everybody that they need to understand how things are being used in that, because it's not traditional.
Yeah.
And that brings up a good point. It's like when you're using some of this technology, you have to kind of tweak the way that your brain works, how to use things.
Yes.
And they'll just think, I downloaded to my computer, and now it's, whatever. Like when you're using these shared, they're great, but it does require a different use of understanding.
Yeah, I think that's like having access or admin controls is so important for things like that, because people just do not know, and you get well-meaning people that just cause huge headaches. And it's kind of like shame on not shame on you, but like shame on you eventually if you keep on allowing something like that to happen. And it's like user permissions or something like that, because people just aren't used to it, you know? So you guys have a team here that I think is, you know, up to par and everybody's on the same page. But, you know, larger corporations, you give Susie access to something in a file and she deletes it all and it's customer information. It's like, how are we running our business the next day? So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when we're editing off of content, you know, usually we're working with, you know, sometimes HD footage, but a lot of times 4K, 6K, 8K footage. So we need to have a good editable, you know, so we're working a lot with NVMEs that are 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte NVMEs for edit speed. But then that's our working off drive, but then we need something then for backup. So we'll typically either have a hard drive or a RAID that's attached to the computer that can be like an immediate on-site backup for that editor. But then we'll also have like a NAS, so network area storage, where we can have a RAID array. And I typically set our NASs up in at least a RAID 6. So if you're like a 4-bay, a 6-bay, an 8-bay NAS, that means that at least 2 drives can fail before anything bad would happen. You can do, you know, I forget which RAID 1 or RAID 2, whatever is where there's 1 drive of failure. That's great. I would stick with 2 drives of failure at least. Now you can do more, but you know that's kind of the bare minimum. But even beyond that, like, so that's all local to our studio. That's not enough. Like one thing that I implemented a while back is just simply having a physical offsite hard drive. And so I just literally will I have a 20 terabyte Western Digital that we just plug in, back up stuff off of the NAS, and then I bring it to my house. So it's physically offsite. If something happened where the whole building went up in flames, we at least have that physical hard drive offsite.
I'm curious why. I mean, so many people talk about going to the cloud for backup and stuff like that. Why haven't you guys kind of, or maybe you are a little bit, but like, why haven't you leveraged that instead of doing the physical backup?
I mean, honestly, right now it's because of cost. The amount of storage that we have, typically 20, 30, 40 terabytes of data at any given time that we would want to have kept in backup. That's several $100s a month, most cloud storage. So the one thing that we kind of do to work around that is using just like the Premiere project files. We'll sometimes do cloud storage of that because those are just really small. They're not, you know, so the raw footage can be backed up, and then the project files, which are edited more frequently, that can be cloud backup.
That makes sense though. I mean, I'm just trying to think of business cases. You guys are gone for, it's travel sometimes for shoots and stuff like that, right? So let's say you're gone for a whole day. I mean, you don't need the things further backed up, like a virtual kind of verification, like, yep, everything's been backed up here. Like, you have what you have since the morning kind of thing. And when I think of it, it's a lot of our businesses that, they're working and it's 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, and like all that information, some of our companies have 15-minute backups that are verified over and over, because if they would lose that information, some of our customers do lots of transactions very, very quickly. If they would lose all that information, they would be hurting really, really bad. So I think that's like a really good point, that maybe that's not always the best case scenario for somebody like the creative that doesn't need that, hey, I need a 15-minute or hour-long backup every single time. So.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's all, you always have to look and see like what are your immediate needs. Like even one thing that we'll have is we have a portable RAID that we will bring up if we're doing like a multi-day shoot where we have to back up the footage, like we need to wipe cards so that we can reuse them. We have a special like heavy duty RAID that's in a case and everything like that, and we'll sometimes bring that with us so we can have an on-site backup as well.
Okay, that's really interesting, because I kind of wonder about that. You guys are shooting in 8K sometimes, which I just think is crazy, because I turn my camera to take some pictures on RAW, and I look at the file size. I'm like, oh my gosh! And then you're sitting here shooting in 8K, and I'm going, you're on a shoot all day long. How do these cards not fill up? How big are these?
Well, a big part of it is having lots of cards. Okay. I literally have dozens and dozens of different forms of media. Another part of it is, again, like just getting lots of large cards as well. But yeah, to that same point, like the one of the advantages to shooting in like 8K or 6K or something like this stuff, where people are like, well, why, you're maybe uploading it in 4K. A lot of times it's only HD. Well, because of modern digital platforms, sometimes we need to shoot for 16:9 safe, 1:1 safe, 9:16 safe.
Sure.
We have to compose stuff to be safe for that full range, and then sometimes we need to be able to punch in and crop into it and stuff like that. So having the range of that, like that's one of the perks of having cameras that shoot at 4K or 6K or 8K. It's because that's what we need to then allow ourselves the options of, and otherwise we have to reshoot every single scene for a different format, which is much longer. I've tried doing that once and never again, because it was like the whole day was chewed up because of that nightmare.
How do you mean like you'd actually reshoot the same thing over and over?
Yeah, we would rotate the camera vertically and then reshoot it for that format. Yeah, it's...
And how do you get the same quality? Or I couldn't imagine being...
There are advantages to still physically shooting it like that. You do get better resolution from it, but I mean, you're having to redo your entire day, and if it's a whole big thing, like it's just not worth it. And you're never going to get the identical take, and it's just going to be... Yeah.
I think as the person sitting here being taped, like, oh my goodness, it's hard enough to get it right once, if you get it right, versus like, hey, now we're gonna have you do it again, and then again, and then again. Yeah, that would not be fun, I think. So that friction being removed with the AK definitely makes sense. Yeah. So
now, when we're ready to actually share the footage with the client, there's services like Dropbox, which we do use, but Vimeo has been our biggest go-to. We have a professional account with them that we also, one of our clients, we do live streaming so that we can live stream through the Vimeo account, and it's much more robust than like just YouTube or Facebook or any of those platforms. We can, because they use it as a lead magnet, so they want to collect email addresses, so they have to create a private link behind it. So that's advantageous for it. But another thing that's really nice about Vimeo is like we'll upload a video for a client to review, and then you've probably experienced this yourself when we send over your ads.
I never have to review anything. It's all perfect. It's all perfect. Yeah.
But when we send it over for review, the Vimeo has a review page where then you can literally click in the frame and be like, all right, there's a glare there. Can you fix that? Or is there, there's a whatever. So like it'll stop the frame. It'll create a little pointer and it'll create a list of all the client feedback. So for us, it's great. For them, it's nice because then it's simple. They don't have to have their own thing to log into. Or we've had clients way in the past that would sit there with a notepad and say it to us, minute 1:23, this happened. It was like they don't have to do that.
That's really nice. And I wasn't I was pretty not being somebody that's done a little video editing, done a little video stuff, but not nearly on this level. And I bought into other video storage platforms, like lifetime deals or like large spaces, because as a teacher I was recording videos, especially over COVID, and I'm like, well, I want to keep these and I'm going to use them for lessons in the future. So I just kept storing them, and it was so messy, a lot of these platforms. Like it was kind of disgusting. Nothing really, like everything was distorted on the screen capture, where it was like what the video was, and the two different places. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then you guys started sending over Vimeo stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've been missing out.
Well, even just the simplicity of being able to then say you can download from there. We can enable downloads, and it also, you can download the original, or you can download a lower resolution one of it too.
And that was the thing that I was like blown away by it, because you guys gave some instructions like, all right, on YouTube we're gonna do some 4K stuff, but then other than that, you only need 1080. I'm like, oh man, when you send this over, it's probably gonna be a mess. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna have all these videos in all these different formats, and then I had the drop down. I'm like, oh yeah, this is easy. I love it. And as somebody that runs the marketing for N2 Technology, it's been incredibly easy to, even for me with that redundancy, I download it from Vimeo, and then I put it onto our OneDrive, and it's such easy access for us. So it's made it so much better than any video hosting site that I've seen in the past. As a consumer, it's made a big difference.
Yeah, I know that there's other services like Frame.io, and even Adobe has their own integrated stuff. Even Dropbox has recently added the ability to have like that client feedback in their UI. But we've just been using Vimeo so long that now all of our stuff is in there, and yeah, that's worked out well for us. And then that also becomes a bit of a cloud backup then for and the end result of the projects, because like, yes, we may need to have somebody. So like our standard policy is when we will hold on to your footage for a year, but then after that, it's like, it's at our discretion to delete it if we need hard drive space, or if we know like, oh, this was a political ad and the client isn't even running anymore. So like, probably don't need this footage anymore. So we may, get rid of that type of stuff down the road. But having all the stuff then uploaded to Vimeo just makes it so much easier. So we don't have to deal with that.
You were talking about being an early adopter, and I've noticed that here. I won't call you out on all the random and amazing gadgets that are just like sitting around. And it's funny because being in IT, I know some of our network engineers or other people. I'm like, you're really going to like it when you come here. Like, you're just going to see some stuff that's cool that you wouldn't have expected. And, I'm curious, though, like, is there ever a concern from a cybersecurity standpoint when you have so many things, like you have so many gadgets and things that are interconnected and all over the place? Like you said, you kind of mentioned or started thinking a little bit about cybersecurity. Like, what do you think when you get another gadget, and your ecosystem grows and grows and grows?
Well, I mean, at a bare minimum, we talk about this all the time. Almost every episode, we talk about two-factor authentication. And like, I know it seems simple, but there's still so many people that don't do it. I still, for my wife, I'm like, you gotta, use this. Stop, use this. Yeah, because like at a bare minimum, having that on everything, because I know when it first started, we're like, you use your Facebook login or your Google login for this stuff, and I'm like, is that better or worse? I don't know if that's better or worse, because technically you're not then creating another password account, then somebody could hack and receive your password. So that's theoretically better, but you are now authorizing another thing to have access to your Facebook or Google account. I don't know which is better. So I'm always torn with that. But either way, at least having that authentication built into it. Sure. Making sure that like one problem we ran into years ago, we were using a service called TeamViewer that would allow us to log into our different accounts, our different computers. And one of my editors, Sean, he was logged into somebody hacked into his TeamViewer account. Sure. And then because of my TeamViewer account was on there, they logged into my computer. Oh, boy. And they went through and they bought they went to any store that your password was saved on, and then started buying e-gift cards and emailing it. And so fortunately, I don't think... Are you watching this happen? Because TeamViewer, for those who don't know, it's remote management. Okay. So yeah, I didn't see it happen. I came back to my computer and I had all these shop pages open and everything like that. Yeah. And so we don't use that anymore. Yes. And then maybe that's fixed, but bad thing happens. It's hard to get a good taste in your mouth after that. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But like something as simple as that, where it's like we were doing everything, two-factor authentication, all this kind of stuff, and yet we still ran into that problem. Sure. And I remember another story I'll share is one of my other partners, he got a Dropbox login email from somebody that was saying, hey, here's this file I sent you, and then of course you click on Dropbox. Well, what it did is sent them to a whatever it's called, a password catcher, whatever, fake login page, which then you put in your information, you hit sign in, and it errors. Oh, you must have entered that incorrectly, and then it sends you to the real Dropbox login page. So when you enter it in the next time, it works. So you think nothing of it. Yep, and you go, oh, I must have typed something wrong. It was a typo. Yeah. And so I had to be IT professional for that one, and because he was even less tech savvy than any of us, and I'm like, okay, because what it did was then it logged into also his email account, and it did a mass emailing of the exact same thing to everybody on his email address. then it wiped his email list and it wiped all of the sent emails. So he didn't even know who he sent it to.
Yeah, what it was. That's so interesting that that kind of one-off email, that's happened to somebody recently that we weren't working with but called us after it happened. Almost the exact same scenario. But, it's one of those things that it's like, all right, let's identify it, let's communicate. Unfortunately, when that happens, all you can do is communicate and put out that information like, hey, this happened. But no business wants to say, like, somebody got into our stuff, no matter what.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. But hopefully with, just from that learning and with continued evolution in cybersecurity solutions, trying to stay one step ahead, it can be prevented. It's just one of those things you just got to keep talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I love working with you guys, because like you're helping us. I try to stay on top of marketing trends and social media platforms and camera technology and all these other things. And it's like, yes, I'm moderately knowledgeable about IT, but not that knowledgeable. So like, it's nice that that's something I don't have to stay on top of all the time, and I can rely on you guys to help us find those gaps and stuff that we're not aware of.
Yeah. Well, likewise, because we surely couldn't put on a podcast or do any of this fun stuff, and it's actually a joy to do. So you guys make it fun, but that education around cybersecurity is so important, and we're just happy that we have a partner like you guys to help facilitate that, because it's making a difference. And every time we hear someone say, oh yeah, we saw the podcast or we saw that short, and like it got me thinking, like that's a difference in it could be a difference in somebody's life or business or employee. Like if they employ 10 people and they implemented something and their company is still running, like that's amazing, right? So yeah. Well, thanks so much for sitting down, Tony.
Yeah,
really appreciate it. Yeah, and hopefully we can do it again, and
so.
Hopefully no bad stories, but we'll create more good ones, and then come on here and run through them. So
awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for watching IT Unplugged. Hope to hear from you guys in the comments or anything down there. If you have any questions, let us know. We'd be happy to talk with you about IT, cybersecurity, any of that fun stuff.